Welcome back to Ready Player None, the only podcast that's never going to give you up. It's been a minute since the absolute fiasco that was the previous chapter. I took a few weeks to recoup and I'm still mad about it. And I've just sneezed 6 times in a row and I found out there's 4 more chapters of this book than I was expecting, so I'm having a really good day so far. With that in mind, why don't we get stuck into chapter 25? As we found out last chapter, Shoto has arranged to meet up with Wade to tell him some grave news. Do you want to count with me the number of things an American man would recognise as being Japanese? Maybe I'll put a counter up. Once Wade gives him clearance, Shoto's ship enters Falco's airspace. I wasn't expecting to get so many gags out of the idea of an oversized birdman. Shoto's vessel was a large interplanetary trawler named the Kurosawa, modelled after a ship called the Bebop in the classic anime series Cowboy Bebop. What else is the most base entry-level anime you can think of? I don't know, Evangelion? Sailor Moon? Pokemon? The Guyver? Trigun? Naruto? Actually, I take back Sailor Moon. Ernest's not going to talk about that. Too girly. Wade's there to greet Shoto on the hangar runway. He was dressed in black mourning robes, and his face bore the same inconsolable expression I'd seen when we spoke on the phone. Parzival-san, he said, bowing low. Shoto-san. Wade returns his bow, and then they high-five, and it's presented in such a way that Shoto wouldn't know what a high-five is? Wade stretches out his palm, a gesture he recognised from the time we'd spent questing together. Grinning, he reached out and slipped me some skin. But then the grin stops and he returns to being morose. Wade takes him to a sitting room in the stronghold, a recreation of the living room set from Family Ties. Shoto recognised the decor and nodded his silent approval. So this book is written from the perspective that this Japanese character would recognise some American sitcom, but not a high five? Shoto sits down on the floor in the centre of the room, Seiza style. And Wade does the same, crossing his legs and facing him. Cultural appropriation, ? After a few moments of silence, Shoto says, "The Sixers killed my brother last night." Shoto alleges that the Sixers broke into Daito's apartment and threw him off the balcony. He shows Wade a Japanese newsfeed article in a browser window. The headline was, "Another otaku suicide." The newsfeed is, of course, covering up the murder. But if the other information in the article is correct, then we now know that Daito was a 22-year-old man named Toshiro Yoshiaki, and he lived alone in Shinjuku, Tokyo. He was a young Japanese man with long, unkempt hair and bad skin. He didn't look anything like his Oasis avatar. "No," Shoto said. "Daito did not commit seppuku." Well, no, that's not what seppuku means. It turns out the only reason the Sixers defeated Daito's avatar on Frobos is because they killed him in real life. Not knowing what else to say, Wade apologizes. And Shoto, saying he wants Wade to know his true name, introduces himself as Akihide. Might be Akihide, but I'm going with Akihide. Wade does a big bow and tells him that his real name's Wade, and Shoto bows as well, both appreciating that there's no need for secrets between them. Akihide tells Wade that he'd never actually met Toshiro in real life. "My relationship with Daito is difficult to explain." He stopped to clear his throat. "We were not brothers. Not in real life. Just in the Oasis." This is the point where in any other book I'd sort of sniff the air and go, "Did you make it gay?" But knowing Ernest Cline, if I adopt that stance, then I'm going to be disappointed. Wade says it's fine that they never met in real life, saying that H and Artemis are his 2 best friends and he's never met them either. Is Artemis your best friend? Because, last I heard she hadn't spoken to you in months. And he also says that Shoto is one of his closest friends too. "We're Gunters," I said, trying to fill the awkward silence. "We live here, in the Oasis. For us, this is the only reality that has any meaning." I think that's the problem with the entire society in this book. So Akihide tells Wade how he and Toshiro first came together. I'm tickled by it because 6 years ago they met in a support group for hikikomori. And I called Wade a hikikomori 10 chapters ago because he stays alone in the sanctity of apartment and gets all his food delivered. I'm glad we're in the portion of the book where the mask slips and we find out what a huge bunch of losers all our main characters are. Anyway, yes, Japan's hikikomori population skyrocketed after Halliday's Easter egg became public knowledge. Every shut-in otaku became a gunter. Millions of young men and women all over the country had locked themselves away from the world. They sometimes called these children the missing millions. So Akihide and Toshiro became a team once the Easter egg hunt began. Toshiro was a video game prodigy, and Akihide knew all about American pop culture. Akihide's grandmother had attended school in the United States, and both of his parents had been born there, so Akihide had been raised on American movies and television, and he'd grown up learning to speak English and Japanese equally well. They've got a mutual love of samurai movies, hence the outfits, and they decided to present as brothers when they took on their new Gunter identities. When Daito and Shoto cleared the first gate, it made them overnight celebrities in Japan because of their nationality. Apparently, beyond product endorsements, they'd even had a live-action show and a cartoon based on them. Shoto had suggested they meet in person only once, because Daito had flown into a rage when he'd suggested it. This is all told in third-person prose, by the way, and from this point, we find out the completely stupid way in which Daito died. The two of them had been in the Kurosawa, cruising Sector 7.
Never heard of it.
When H had got the Jade Key. They knew, like we did, that when that happened, the Sixers would use the Findus Crispy Pancake to locate H. In preparation for this, Daito and Shoto had spent the past few weeks planting microscopic tracking devices on the hulls of every Sixer gunship they could find. What? Hold on, I'm going to flip back. Right, so I just had to go and flip back just to make sure that I'd remembered things correctly. It turns out I had, and this is just really clunky prose. Artemis found the Jade Key first, and then I think it was a few days later, H found the Jade Key second. But Artemis is completely omitted from this part. It says that Daito and Shoto were prepared for H finding the key and spent a few weeks putting trackers on all the Sixers gunships. It's just weird how they've mentioned they're preparing for H getting the key when they don't mention that they only know H will get it because Artemis got it. Get it? And if it was a few days between the two of them, how did they have a few weeks to plant all the trackers? Just skim reading, Artemis got the key, Wade spends the rest of the day in shock, which suggests it's the following day that he goes to Archide and plays Pac-Man, and it's while he's playing Pac-Man that H gets the key. This bit, I don't know, this bit could have been better written. Well, the whole thing could have been better written. So somehow, through this nonsensical sequence of actions, Daito and Shoto tracked the Sixers to Frobos. They'd figured out the quatrain on the journey once they knew what the destination was. I mean, it's easy to solve a riddle when you've got a clue to the answer. So get a load of this. They park the Kurosawa outside one of the white houses from Zork. Shoto goes inside to collect the 19 treasures, while Daito remains outside to stand guard. Shoto gets 17 treasures in when Daito tells him that the Sixers are inbound. This might be their only chance to get the key, so Shoto carries on. Shoto gets a camera on the Kurosawa to record what happens next. And it's this video footage that he's showing Wade to explain how Daito died, because he can't bring himself to say it or even watch it back. Play by play. Daito in the field, surrounded by about 10 Sixer gunships, and they're all shooting at him with laser beams. There's Sixer ground troops as well. The two are completely surrounded. So Daito pulls out the beta capsule. Do you remember that? He pulled out the beta capsule, held it aloft in his right hand, and activated it. His avatar instantly changed into Ultraman, a glowing-eyed red and silver alien superhero. As his avatar transformed, he also grew to a height of 156 feet. We've got Ultraman's last stand. It's ridiculous. So Ultraman Daito is smashing all the ships to pieces with his bare hands. He dropped the flaming wreckage to the ground and began to swat the other Sixer gunships out of the sky like bothersome flies.
I'm going to swat down a couple of bothersome flies.
The Sixer's laser bolts are all bouncing off his armoured skin. Daito let out a booming laugh that echoed across the landscape. Does Ultraman laugh? Does Samurai laugh? Is he breaking character? Then he uses Ultraman's cross-armed laser beam, whatever, to blast a few more ships and fry the ground forces like terrified ants under a magnifying glass. Yeah, he's having such a good time that he fails to notice the warning light in his chest telling him that his 3 minutes as Uratora Man are nearly up. If Daito failed to deactivate the beta capsule and return to human form before his 3 minutes were up, his avatar would die. That's a stupid thing for your game item to do. Of course, if he deactivates it now, he'd be vulnerable as anything, so he'd probably be killed anyway. As the Sixers call for backup, Shoto exits the house, telling Daito that he's got the Jade Key. All the Sixers turn on him, he's the target now. Shoto's got boots of speed on, so he zips across the battlefield towards the ship, while Daito tries and blocks the laser fire with his enormous Ultraman body. Then Daito's voice broke in on the comlink. "Shoto," he shouted, "I think someone is here. Someone is inside." His voice cut off, and his avatar is logged out. Now apparently logging out means that your avatar is vulnerable for 60 seconds, so if you do it in battle, you're a sitting duck. The logout sequence was designed this way to prevent avatars from using it as an easy way to escape a fight. I bet it helps with rage quitting too. What's the thing from Dark Souls? You can't rest here, enemies are nearby. That's from Elder Scrolls or something, isn't it? So Daito's avatar is completely immobilized while he's being killed in real life, and his timer runs out on his Ultraman body, which means that falls down and just about misses Shoto and the Kurosawa. Then he shrinks to his normal size, drops all his items, and then disappears completely. Shoto picks up all his items, including, conspicuously, the beta capsule. And then Shoto gets in the ship and escapes, a lot like Wade did. Although Shoto has the benefit that Daito has taken out most of the 6 gunships. Page break. So, that was dumb. First off, you've got a character becoming super powerful, and then within 3 minutes being undone by their own hubris. He was laughing and having a good time. The prose is dopey with things like the gunships being smashed together like a giant child playing with 2 tiny metal toys. And what, he's roaring and laughing while he's doing it? And the death of one of your key characters is presented in a sequence where he's dressed up as a giant Ultraman? Now, I barely know a thing about Ultraman, but you want me to imagine this somber, difficult battle for him as taking place while he's dressed as a giant man in Lycra? Like what, are the gunships on strings? Are the ground troops little green army men? I'm not going to take that seriously. It's a Japanese children's show from 40 years ago. What a load of old cobblers. Okay, boys, take us home. So with Daito dead, Shoto says that he's tried to take precautions to cover his own tracks. Not that it helped Daito. It's weird, actually. The narrative's gone back to calling him Shoto after spending a while calling him Akihide. I thought we'd crossed the boundary into a first-name basis then, but it looks like not. So guess what happens? As entirely predicted, Shoto gives Wade the beta capsule. Wade says he should keep it, but Shoto is insistent that he doesn't want or need it. Remember when Wade said that the power of Japan's greatest superhero should remain in Japanese hands? Well, now a Japanese character says it's alright for him to have it, so I took the artifact and examined it. You've already seen it. It was a small metal cylinder, silver and black in colour, with a red activation button on its side. Its size and shape reminded me of the lightsabers I owned. Ernest Cline's gone a few chapters without reminding you he's into an obscure film named Star Wars. I had over 50 in my collection. Why does part of me think that Ernest Cline has over 50 lightsabers in his collection as well? Wade bows in gratitude. Thank you, Shoto-san. Thank you, Parzival, he said, returning the bow. Thank you for listening. Wade can tell he is a defeated man from his body language. But Shoto tells him that his goal has changed. He no longer wants to find the egg. He wants revengeance. Wade takes down a samurai sword from his wall and gives it to Shoto as a gift. Shoto took the sword and drew its ornate blade a few inches from the scabbard. A Masamune? He asked, staring at the blade in wonder. Wade, do you think Shoto, as a samurai-styled gunter, might have a few samurai swords? You're just presenting his own culture back to him as a gift. I nodded. Yes, and it's a +5 Vorpal blade too. I think I've already done my Vorpal blade bit, haven't I? Shoto bowed again to show his gratitude. Arigato! They both go back to the hangar bay in silence, and just as he's about to leave, Shoto asks, how long do you think it will take the Sixers to clear the 3rd gate? Wade hopes it's long enough that they've got time to catch up. It's not over until the fat lady is singing, right? I nodded. It's not over until it's over, and it's not over yet. End chapter 25. I wish it was over yet. Despite the death of a character in this chapter, the general hopeful note that it ends on supports my analysis that the previous episode lay in the trough at the end of Act 2. Like that chapter, Ernest yet again proved definitively that he has no idea how to have an emotionally mature conversation. He's again turning a young person's death into a mawkish spectacle, but at least this time it's because it's framed with all these light-hearted kids' show trappings. If he wants us to feel sympathetic towards the death of his character, maybe he should have introduced the more personal element sooner than 2 pages before we find out how he died, because otherwise he's just cool generic samurai number 1. I hope cool generic samurai number 2 gets his moment of revenge, but given that he's not the main character, I'm not holding out any hope. Wade's gonna power up that beta capsule and be like, this is for Daito, or something, isn't he? And if that's gonna happen, then Shoto should have kept the thing. Whatever. If you want to resolve your eternal conflict, you can follow me on Twitter at TheLastGherkin, or follow the show on Twitter at RPN_pod. Watch along with subtitles on YouTube, The Last Gherkin, or get an MP3 download at thelastgherkin.podbean.com. Join us next time as the book takes a step into a brave new world with only one person of colour in it. But don't worry, the rate of named Japanese characters being samurai is still 100%. So, why is this dumb? Well, I'll tell you. The logout sequence I need a sip. Ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba.